Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a quorum, and we welcome you all to this annual meeting. Barbara, you want to?
We do have a quorum.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We have a vote even before you all vote. That doesn't mean you can leave. It just means we're in good shape. But I'd like to call on Angela for an opening prayer.
Let us pray. Abiding God, you were with those founding members who gathered 49 years ago and held the first congregational meeting of Naples United Church of Christ. Thank you for giving them the courage, faith, and inspiration needed to start this great church. We ask that today, all these years later, we might be as courageous and as faithful in our deliberations. Give us the wisdom to make decisions which are in accordance with your will. May we hear with discerning ears. May we speak loving words. And may we vote with courageous hearts. And whether we agree or disagree with the decisions made, may we conduct ourselves in such a way that each of us feels like we have a seat and a voice at the table. Amen. And now it's my privilege to introduce the opening hymn that we're going to sing together. Dr. Bartlett was one of the first pastors of Naples United Church of Christ, if not was he the first pastor? I'm looking at you, Mike Downs. Do you know? Anyway, I'm putting you on the spot. That's okay. Dr. Bartlett's dream of beginning this church became a reality when he was joined by Dr. Perd Dietz. Dr. Dietz was a retired pastor and an executive of the Evangelical and Reformed Church, and he was also the author of the hymn that we will sing, "We Would Be Building." He later became an executive of the United Church of Christ, and it was during this time that he came to Naples to assist Dr. Bartlett in the initial feasibility studies of our great church. 27 people gathered for worship on February 13th, 1972, which was exactly 50 years ago today. So in the spirit of those who came before us, let us join together in singing the hymn authored by Dr. Dietz, "We Would Be Building."
Please be seated. I'd like to introduce Barbara Converse, who's the clerk of the church. She's already established a quorum for us, but we need approval of the minutes of last year's annual meeting. And
I make a motion to approve the minutes of last year's annual meeting as they stand.
okay, the motion has been made and second. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Okay. Fine. Thank you very much. I've been given 5 minutes to talk about the last couple of years in the church. Any of you who know me know that I don't talk for 5 minutes about anything. But in any case, I'll try to not use too much time. It's been a challenging year. Let's just take the last year. COVID hit hard, and we were closed from March 20 to April 2021. The impact of that was really felt primarily on our finances. More costs, less income, and less giving units. One of the things that is happening throughout the United States is that churches are struggling to find ways with people who watch services remotely, those of you up there, to get them to give on a regular basis when they're not here, to get them to fill out pledge cards, as we have done for many years. Last year, we were 50 giving units down. Now, what does that mean? It means about $200,000 that we did not have as income that we would normally have. So I encourage you, please, for budgeting purposes and also to support the church, that you fill out a giving card. The second major impact of COVID, and this was really big, was on PCA, which is our Precious Cargo Academy, our preschool program that we've had for 20 years. Very important program in supporting the children of working parents. With COVID, what happened was that we had everybody divided into pods, small pods, but as a pod was hit by COVID, either through a teacher or a student, we had to close it. And then we used church funds to keep it going. Well, this went on within church fund infusion for most of the year, and by the October, we were almost $400,000 down on our cash. And we made the difficult decision to close it because there's also a huge teacher shortage. There have been over 20 preschool schools that have closed in this area for the same reasons. And so we had to make that really difficult decision. The January 8th issue of The Economist magazine had an interesting article saying the title of the article was "The World's Religious Face in a Post-Pandemic Reckoning." And it basically said that churches, synagogues, and mosques all over the world are facing the same problem. Drop-off in attendance, drop-off in funding, yet great buildings and high maintenance. And it looked at it from an economic perspective and said, in a post-COVID world, as the world bounces back, will giving and support bounce back? Because it's going to be critical. The estimates in the United States are that as many as a third of the small country churches may have to close because of lack of funds after what we've all been through. So it was a hard year, a difficult year. But let's look at the other side, because this is a strong, and as Dawson says, a great church. We increased, doubled our technological capacity, invested $200,000 to enable us to have an online attendance. Our attendance now is running about 200 to 250 per service in person. So we're looking at 400 to 500 people in person, plus about 300 people online. So 700 to 800 people per Sunday. That's down. You have to be truthful. From 2019, skip over the COVID years, that's down 200 or 300. We used to run 1,000. So somewhere in the midst of all of this, we've lost people, not just in person, but also online. And we've decided, the leadership of the church has decided really that the answer here is going out and increasing membership, increasing giving, and not cutting expenses any more than we have. We've gone from 3 ministers, 3.5 ministers, down to 2. And you can't cut much more than that. But we are in better shape than many churches. There are many churches that are coming to look at us to see how we did it, how we made it, and how we are making it. Our boards, our councils, our committees continued to meet all during this period, carried on business as usual. You can see when you read Eagle's Wings or you read the Sunday Bulletin, the activities of the church continue. And behind those activities are scores of lay leaders and staff and clergy who have kept this church going. And it's going to get better, because we're going to continue now to attract more people. And even with the retirement of Deb Kaiser Cross and Sharon Harris Ewing, we welcome a new generation. Angela Weltbean is a sparkle. Where are you? Sparkle. You're a sparkle. And that's what people have told me. And by the way, your mother's a pistol. She spoke at the installation, and she was absolutely fabulous, just fabulous. And then I want to acknowledge Dawson and all that he has done here to keep this place steady, to invest his energy in keeping it stable, in upgrading the technology, in preaching inspiration from the pulpit, in being a friend and a colleague and a wonderful, wonderful human being. And I'm not going to get another chance to say things about him, so that's a tenth of what I want to say. But thank you. My time is, of course, up. But I really just want to quickly read a few names of the people who really got us through this year, beginning with June Ballou, the chairman of the board. She and Jack Torn, Mike Downs, and other members of the financial task force really managed our cash and our projections all through the year, and they were changing weekly. They still are in some cases. I want to acknowledge Dr. Bob and Candy Nordland, who ran a wonderful campaign, a stewardship campaign, last year and now this. Kitty Keene for reworking the bylaws. For most of us, there couldn't be a more onerous task, but I understand that lawyers really enjoy this stuff. But thank you for handling the bylaws. Mary Lee Turk, who is going to be our new vice moderator, spent 6 months chairing a task force to try to save PCA, looking at every possible scenario from an analysis of current operations to options for the future before we came to the conclusion to have to close it. But I want to thank her for enormous work. And then we have somebody actually who I think may be unique in all of church work. Ann Olson. Where are you here? Ann Olson. Ann Olson is the only person I know who has chaired 3 clergy searches in 1 year. 2 of them were canceled. And she's working on the 3rd, which is the transition, the interim minister. And I know whoever she comes up with will be wonderful because she is. And so I thank you for that, Ann. David Henman, chairing BOMO, is retiring now. Gary Personet's taking over, but David has been unfailing in the mission.
Jane Berry's co-chair.
And Jane Berry's co-chair, sorry. But has been unfailing in keeping BOMO going and keeping this church as a mission-driven church. And Becky Weiss-Trump with her incredible music, and Mark Harmon with his steady administrative hand, and the rest of the staff have really kept us going through the year. And the music program is good or better than ever. And where is she? Did she disappear? Ah, there she is. I know. I know how it is. Anyway, and I want to thank finally Ronnie Ballone, my vice moderator, and my fellow New Yorker who's about to become moderator here of this great church. Final comment. I read a book last year which was called, very appropriately, How Do You Lead When You Don't Know Where You're Going? Think about it. It's a real dilemma today. I mean, I work with leaders all over the world, and everybody has the same problem. Where are we going? Where will we be in 3 years? Where will we be in 5 years? Where will we be in 10 years? I don't know. But you have to lead anyway. And the answer is you do it 2 ways. First, you do it with community and teamwork. You don't do it alone. You can't do it alone. It's too complex, and there are too many interests in the world that have to be taken into account. And secondly, and most importantly, you have to do it with faith that God will help you discern the way, because in the end, it's bigger than all of us. So that's the way for our future, and I know you all will participate in it and support Ronnie, and I really thank you for the opportunity that I had to serve in this position for the last 2 years. Thank you very much. Now, getting to the business at hand, there are actually 3 things that we have to do in this meeting. We have to pass a budget for 2022. We have to pass some revisions in the bylaws. And we also have to approve the nominating slate for the next year. So to begin with the budget, I'd like to call Jack Torrin, treasurer, wherever he... There you are. Okay, Jack, there's Jack over there. And since the budget is already coming from the church council, it only needs a second. Can I have a second? Thank you. Now, questions or comments on the budget? You know, we have what I failed to mention is these 7 lay leadership updates that we've been sending out since the end of December every week, trying to give you as much information as possible about a very complicated situation, and obviously a difficult one. We're projecting a deficit this year, but we are hoping very much that we can break even, but that would remain to be seen. In any case, you've seen the budget. It's been printed. It's printed in the annual report. And if you have any questions, Jack is here. Okay, seeing none. I missed? Oh, I'm sorry. There you go. Jack, you want to?
Jack, can we go to the mic so that people online can hear you, please? If you want to sing, too.
June, please help me out here, because you know more about this than I do. A big chunk of that was from Precious Cargo that paid.
Pick the phone up. Pick the microphone up.
Pick it up. All right.
There you go.
Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you're on.
Precious Cargo transferred money, as the bargain box does, from their operation to the church every year, and that it was 50,000 last year, roughly. And there was some rentals, some weddings, a whole bunch of different categories, other than the stewardship and a few of the big categories. We just all lumped them in, and that number doesn't change much every year to year, except we will not be receiving that money from Precious Cargo again next year.
June?
Does that answer?
Non-pledged income is really what comes in the plate. So pledged is when you do your estimate of giving, and that is charted as your giving. So that's pledged. Non-pledged is exactly that. It's money that comes into the church during Sunday and some other events that has not been pledged, and there's no name associated necessarily with it. But it hasn't been pledged. You may give without doing a pledge, and that goes into that category. Does that help? You're welcome.
Good. Other? Yes.
plate, okay. So some
Get, June, keep your mic up at your mouth
I'm sorry, what you got to, oh, messing with the mic?
and repeat the question.
Oh, I think the question was, what's the difference between non-pledged and plate? So some of that is the same, but the non-pledged is from members, and the plate is from non-members, if I'm correct in part of that. And I know,
Will you take my, Jake, will you take my mic off?
So it's about the generosity of this great church. There are friends and members of this church who give quite generously but do not fill out an estimate of giving. So if you give through a credit card, a check, cash, bank transfer, IRA transfer, etc., but haven't pledged, and we receive that gift, that is non-pledged income. If you fill out an estimate of giving and give, that's pledged income. If you put that money into the offering plate and it's cash that can't be tracked to the Berries, to the Blues, to the Rhinesmiths, that's plate income. So really you can think of plate income as kind of loose cash, things like that. But non-pledged income is money that can be tracked that has not been pledged, if you will.
what I thought I said, but I guess I didn't say it quite as clear. Thank you, Dawson.
Is that clear? Okay. Other,
Jack was making a comment, I think because he heard the question different. I don't normally need a mic. About precious cargo and or bargain box. That what they would pay for was the administrative cost associated with running their portion of the church. So they contributed money to the administration or the staff that was needed to help them through that time. And part of what Bargain Box is, what they get out of theirs this year and last year, is their advertising. We took that over rather than them having an outside agency to do their advertising.
okay. Other, anybody else? Okay. Just the phone? Is that the only thing? Okay. Good. Thank you very much. I will call for a vote on the adoption of the 2022 church budget. All of those in favor, raise your hand. Barbara, do we need a count, specific count on this, or we're okay?
We have enough proxy votes.
Okay, we have enough proxy votes in favor that we appreciate your hands, but we don't need to count them. Good. The 2022 budget is therefore adopted. That brings me to the bylaws, and a few words about them. You have them printed, and so you've had a chance to see them. There are only 2 or 3 things that are changed, and there's only 1 or 2 things that are really important. This was really a cleanup of the bylaws from last year, and throughout we made some small changes with regard to the establishment of quorums when people were in a hybrid situation and voting from outside the room. So we needed to specify that it was okay to establish a quorum using remote transmission. So those are a couple of the cleanup kinds of things. The more significant is the elimination of 7.5.9, which is Precious Cargo Academy Committee, since obviously the Precious Cargo Academy is no longer in existence. That we took out of the bylaws. And then the third and final thing, which is, I think, most important, is that we added, under 7.5.12, we added a clergy relations committee, which most churches have, and those of you from other churches in the north will know this as a pastor-parish relations committee. It's made up of 2 or 3, 4 people that the pastor trusts and works with on a confidential basis. They work as communicators to the pastor about any feedback from the congregation. And pastor, confides in them any questions or concerns that he or she has about being in the position that they're in. And we had one many years ago that was disbanded. And we believe very strongly that going forward, that would be a useful committee. And it's one for each pastor. So it would be one for the senior minister, one for the associate minister, one for any other ministers, rather than they're all coming together. In other words, it's separate groups based on their selection, not our selection or any church or committee. And they're confidential, obviously. So that's the major addition. Yes. Those are appointed. The pastor that will in consultation with the moderator. Yeah. They won't show up. No, they don't show up on a nominating slip. They don't. It's a confidential group. Okay. So those are the changes. Kitty, do you have anything else that you think we ought to note? Okay. Any questions then on the bylaw changes? Okay. If there are none, since the budget, or since the bylaws are also have been approved by the church council, we only need a second. Can I have a second? Okay. Questions or discussion we have already done. I can never get these things in order. Therefore, let me call for a vote. All in favor of the bylaws as amended? Okay, thank you. Against? Okay, none. Thank you. Finally, we have the report of the nominating committee. This is Jen Rainey, chair of the nominating committee for the last 7 years, is retiring because of exhaustion, and she has done an absolutely wonderful job. So I will let her say a few words about this.
Thank you. While I have been on the committee for 7 years, I've chaired it for 6, and it's been my pleasure. And I've had the honor of working with a great team of members. Over the last year, we've nominated several new members to your boards and committees. I ask that the chairs of the committees please vote on the committees vote on a chair, vice chair, and a secretary, and that the boards vote on a vice chair and secretary at your very first meeting. So on behalf of the nominating committee, I'm pleased to ask for a second on the council's motion to nominate this year's slate, as documented in your annual report. Do I hear a second? All in favor? Thank you.
Okay. I should tell you that for those of you who are curious, and I'm sure you are, we received up to the time this meeting started something around 250 proxies. And on the questions that we just voted on, there were 3 different votes, obviously, for the budget and then the bylaws and the slate. But there were no more than 10 votes against any of the 3 things that we were we were trying to deal with today. So the church is unified in its desire to move forward, and as it moves forward, it will move forward with a person that I've gotten to know very well over the last 2 years, and I am very happy and proud to introduce the new moderator of this church, Ronnie Ballone.
Good afternoon, and thank you, I think. First, I want to tell you how much I love this church. This has brought so much meaning to my life over the past more than decade that I have been a member. And for that, I am very, very grateful. But my first task as moderator is to remind you that you can read the annual reports of boards, committees, task forces, and entities of our congregation in the annual report. If you didn't receive it via email or picked one up, please contact the church office and let the staff know, and they will get one to you. There's no vote required to accept these annual reports. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the officers you just elected and ask them to stand so you can see who they are and who I will be working very closely with at least over the next year. They are Mary Lee Turk as Vice Moderator, Janet Naku as Clerk, June Ballou as Vice President and Chair of the Board of Trustees, Jack Torin, Treasurer, and Michael Downs as Assistant Treasurer. So these 5, in addition to me, will make up the Executive Committee. The others that make up the Executive Committee, there are 3 lay leaders, and Dawson, who has voice but no vote, but Dawson is on the Executive Committee. The other 3 lay leaders are Ron Sanson. Ron, are you here? Ron Palmer. Thank you. So we have 3 Rons, Ron, Ronnie. Thank you very much. And of course, we have Rich Kirchner, who I believe is at home. So thank you all for volunteering. Oh, Gary Personette, how can I forget? That was, thank you, Gary. Next on my agenda as moderator is to say to you, Steve, how grateful I am for all you have done as moderator through the last 2 very challenging years, including the closing of this great church and the reopening and your focus on broadcasting rather than producing. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
But as you retire, I was faced with a dilemma. What do you get a person who has everything? What kind of thing, memento, remembrance of your service here at Naples United Church of Christ that could be construed as everlasting? So, after speaking with Dawson, I came up with an idea. A living tribute. No, not a puppy or a baby elephant, but something that will last a very, very long time. Something your children, grandchildren, and generations to follow will know. It is a special living tribute of a large grove of trees that will be planted in one of our nation's national forests, specifically Green Mountain National Forest in Vermont, to honor and to honor and celebrate you, Dr. Stephen Rhinesmith, for your leadership and service to Naples United Church of Christ.
Wonderful. That's great.
There you go.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's fantastic.
I have a
Thank
box,
you.
Kathy.
In case you didn't know, we live in Vermont, in the north, in the wintertime.
So I'll leave it right here.
Thank you. That is fantastic.
So I'm going to do a little repeat, but not much. To those members who are leaving their positions from the boards, committees, or task forces, I say thank you. To the staff who have faithfully served, I say thank you. To our clergy, for your wisdom and guidance, your prayers and spiritual direction, I say thank you. To those members continuing on and those who have volunteered to join the boards, committees, or task forces, I welcome and say thank you. Throughout her 4 years of dedicated service as clerk of the church, Barbara Converse, who so admirably and ably kept the executive committee and church council on time and on target, scheduling meetings and Zooms, getting them all established, establishing email reminders, asking for reports, emailing them to the attendees so that we all could be ready for the meeting, and when the meeting was over, writing those minutes. So Barbara, for a very difficult job, thank you.
Yeah.
It indeed takes a village. It would not be possible without your continued generosity, both yours and mine. NUCC's success depends not just on one person, but on all of us together. We must be united to not just survive, but to thrive. One of my beliefs that I think we share is that we must keep moving forward. That belief has motivated NUCC throughout the first 49 years, through thick and thin. We must continually edge forward, leaning into our challenges and opportunities. Through the challenges in the past, members then had the sense that bright days would follow, and they did. I have confidence that we too can do this together, with partnership of staff and clergy, with the help of God. We have been and still are committed to our mission and continue with resolve to making a difference in our world and to those whose lives we touch. When we became members of NUCC, the congregation said, "We rejoice in recognizing you as a member of Naples United Church of Christ. We celebrate the diversity of needs, ideas, and visions that God has created. As our faith journeys are united, we give thanks to our past and ask God's blessing on our church and its future. We promise to support one another in the common task of building here on earth the realm of God. I will keep that promise with the help of God." Thank you. Dawson, would you close us with a prayer, please?
If I may be so bold, to the first, Madam Moderator, welcome and congratulations. And you've been waiting for me to say, Mr. Immediate Past Moderator.
I have.
50 years ago, can you imagine that those who gathered for worship would have ever imagined what an amazing congregation this would become? And, you know, sometimes we lose sight that this was actually a church planted by the national setting. I wish our national setting was still more actively in that business, but we are a shining beacon of that great work of the national church. But I just think it's so remarkable that 50 years later, after that first gathering, that we celebrate where we have come and where we will go. And so it's in that spirit I invite you to rise in body and spirit to receive this prayer, and then I believe we will be adjourned. And then you get to go to lunch. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, for all that we have been given, we are grateful. And yet for all that we have been asked to do, we are ready. So send us forth in strength and in courage, with grace and with vision, to truly be the church and the people that you have called, created, and asked us to be, knowing that you are with us and walk beside us. Amen.
Amen.
There is no other further business, so I call this annual meeting adjourned. Thank you.